Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our conversation on virtual education with Professor Deb Morrison. My name is Bruce Johnson, and I serve on the class of 1970 reunion steering committee, along with my classmates Marcy Hanson, Denny Schlafer, and Steve English. As you know, the COVID pandemic has profoundly altered the way in which faculty at the University of Oregon and elsewhere now deliver courses. This session provides a view from the trenches, a glimpse into the changes made, the lessons learned, and the challenges overcome. Before we begin our conversation with Professor Morrison, however, it is both my honor and my privilege to introduce the University of Oregon's 18th president, Michael H. Schill, who also holds a tenured faculty appointment in the U of O Law School. As president, he has launched a series of initiatives to advance the university's priorities of enhancing academic and research excellence, supporting student access and success, and improving the campus experience and its diversity. In 2016, President Schill announced the launch of the Phil and Penny Knight campus for accelerating scientific discovery, a $1 billion initiative to transform innovation at the U of O, which officially opened in 2020. Prior to coming to the University of Oregon, Schill was the Dean of the University of Chicago Law School. He has also served as Dean of the University of California at Los Angeles School of Law, and was a law professor at both New York University and the University of Pennsylvania. Schill graduated from Princeton with a degree in public policy and earned his Juris Doctorate from the Yale Law School. Welcome, President Schill.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's really great to be with you today. And I want to welcome the class of 1970 and 71 to your reunion. And you're going to have a great experience after I'm done, because Deb Morrison is, we call her a force of nature. She is an unbelievable professor, and she can give you a sense of how things are going with our students. And she's someone who deeply, deeply cares, not just about the educational components of our work, but also the welfare of our students and their futures. So I'm really delighted that you'll have her to speak with you. Well, this has certainly been a tumultuous year. Our faculty did an amazing job on very short notice, pivoting from in-person education to remote education. It sort of happened with almost no notice at all. And they did a great job with it. I think that we all owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude for what they did. And they continue to do, because we're still in remote. Now, despite the success of the faculty in being able to move to that different form of education, it also reinforced within me the importance of our traditional model of education. The model of a residential university where students live with each other, get to know each other, learn from each other as well as their professors, and take part in a really rich sort of extracurricular, co-curricular environment. I mean, that is one of the things that the University of Oregon gets almost perfect, I would say. And it's one of the reasons why we have this enduring sort of demand among students. And it's one of the reasons when I go see alumni like you, they all say how much they love their time here. We get the balance between great academics and a great social, athletic, co-curricular life just right. So I can't wait to get back, and we will be back in the fall. And I'm very, very excited about that. Now, some of you, I don't know how many of you have been back to the campus. There's certainly been a lot of changes to our physical plant since when you all graduated. Some parts you're going to recognize. Maybe unfortunately, PLC has not changed at all, and the faculty there remind me of that. Gerlinger Annex, not changed. Mackenzie Hall, not really changed. Other buildings have been significantly updated, such as the EMU, which is gorgeous. It's still confusing to walk around, but really gorgeous. Bean Hall, which many of you may have lived in, it's now become the hot dorm. It got renovated. It still has a room where if you reach out from your bed, you'll touch the next person in their bed. But nonetheless, it's become very, very hot. Great public spaces. Pacific Hall has been renovated with a gift from the Ford family, and the Lillis complex has been redone and added to, and it's just amazing. Then there's some new buildings on campus, which I hope you get to see. The Willie and Don Tykeson Hall, which is devoted to student success and advising, which has been a huge initiative of mine to try and make sure our students succeed, graduate on time. The new Allen Price Science Commons. I never saw the old science library, but this has again become a sort of drawing place for students. It's gorgeous and is not like anyone's belief of what a library is or was. The Phil and Penny Knight Campus for Accelerating Scientific Impact, which is just an extraordinary building. It is really top in class. We're incredibly delighted. And why shouldn't a building which was named for our one of the most creative, foremost entrepreneurs in our country's history not be a spectacular building? And of course, the renovated Hayward Field, which is really unbelievable. And we can't wait to christen that, perhaps, actually not perhaps, but definitely this spring with the Olympic trials. Now, COVID-19 has prevented us from using these physical spaces yet, some of these new physical spaces, although there is a faculty now in the Knight campus. It's not fully occupied. The advisors in Tykeson are not there all of the time. They're working remotely, which actually has worked very well. But we will be all back, and folks will be back in their assigned places just as soon as we can. And you know, one of the things that we have been very, very attentive to is the health and safety of the community. So we're not doing anything. We're not moving back. We're not doing anything unless we get the approvals of the state health authorities, the county health authorities, and also our faculty. We're setting up a faculty committee actually with OSU to go over some of the science and make sure that we do what we need to do to clean, to have air ventilation, and to socially distance. Because even with the vaccines, and the governor, as you all, some of you know, announced that vaccines will be available to anyone on May 1st, or at least they'll be eligible to get them on May 1st. So that's very, very exciting. A large portion of our population will be vaccinated by the time we get together. Now, in addition to physical spaces are only good for what goes on inside them, right? I mean, they're beautiful, but what really matters is what goes inside. And so I'll just mention some of the changes that are occurring to our research and curriculum, which I think are very exciting. Obviously, the Knight campus has been a big priority for me. We never had an engineering school at the University of Oregon. This is our foray into applied science and engineering. It's a bioengineering research facility. We've already hired 8 people. We're likely to hire up to 20 new faculty members once we are fully, the gift, we fully fundraise for it, and the buildings are open. And one of the things that's been approved has been a new bioengineering degree. We already have a new degree for graduate students. This is going to be a degree for undergraduates. So just think of it. This is the first time we've ever had an engineering degree at the University of Oregon, which is a big change. And to be honest, the absence of engineering and applied science has held our school back. Now, one of the things particularly that will surprise you is the graduate degree in bioengineering is a joint degree. And guess who it's with? It's with Oregon State. Now, I know that we love to hate Oregon State, but this is a really amazing cooperation with them to jointly offer a degree to graduate students. And we want to do more things together because we recognize that while it's great to hate each other on the playing field, it's not great to hate each other in the state. We're devoted to the state of Oregon, both of us, both Oregon State and the University of Oregon, and we want to make it stronger. We want to serve our students. Now, just recently, the provost announced a set of initiatives, which are research and teaching initiatives. And I just want to go through them very quickly. An environmental initiative. We always say we're the green school. We have so much going on in the environment, but 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. And we're committed that 1 + 1 + 1 should equal 5. And so we're going to bring them together. We're going to strengthen them. We're going to really try to get momentum and synergies. And it's all the way through the university, whether it's in the journalism school, the work that Deb is doing, whether it is in the business school, whether it's in the law school, which has a great center, the environmental humanities, which just got a huge gift from the Mellon Foundation, all the way through the university, the sciences. So that's a big initiative. Second, one of the things that we're all talking about, thinking about after the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor is what are we going to do about race? How are we going to build greater understanding? How can we affect racism in our society? So we have announced the creation of a racial disparities center on our campus where we will be hiring new faculty to the university, creating more diversity and facilitating greater inclusion, including with our new Black Cultural Center. We're going to have a sports and wellness program. This is also a natural for the university. We have a great Ducks team. We have great marketing, sports marketing in the business school, sports product design in the College of Design. We have human physiology. Got to bring them all together. Got to make more than 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. And the Knight campus is going to be very strong here in regenerative medicine. And lastly, innovation and entrepreneurship. One of the things that we have not done in the past, which we really need to do, is get our ideas out into the world, create new solutions to problems, take the intellectual activity here, the great academics, the discoveries that we make, and create products and create ways to which we can really improve our country. So that's one of the initiatives. Again, it's going to involve multiple schools like the Knight campus, the business school, the law school, and more. And that is just some central initiatives. Each one of our colleges and schools has other great initiatives. For example, one of the schools that's been most creative is the School of Journalism and Communication, where Deb Morrison is a faculty member. She has this great program, Science and Memory, which she'll probably tell you a little bit about. Unbelievable program. And in addition, they started recently a Center for Communication of Science. And it's how you can explain to people about difficult scientific innovations, because as we know from COVID-19, it's just really hard to get people to understand science. And so we have a great faculty member who we hired a couple of years ago who actually went here, and we're just really, really excited with that. In short, I just want all of you to know, one, thank you for being great alumni. Thank you for your interest and support of the University of Oregon. And just understand, this has been a hard year for all of us, but it hasn't slowed us down. And we're going to come out of this stronger than ever. And I hope to get to see you in person rather than through Zoom. But until then, stay well and go Ducks. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for those opening remarks, President Schill. For those of you who are new to the Zoom experience, we're broadcasting in a webinar format, which means that the audio and video feeds from your computers, tablets, or cell phones are muted. Although neither Professor Morrison nor I can see or hear you, we want to encourage your active participation in the conversation that is about to unfold. Please take full advantage of the Q&A text feature at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. Our good friend Julie DeBias from the Alumni Association will be monitoring the Q&A stream. Professor Deb Morrison is the Carolyn Silva Chambers Distinguished Professor of Advertising and Director of the School of Journalism and Communications Advertising Program with its roughly 540 students. She joined the University of Oregon in 2005, is an accomplished author, has received several national and university teaching awards, and has spoken at both the United Nations and at Austin's South by Southwest conference. Among her many recognitions, the one she holds most dear is being named a Betty Crocker Homemaker of Tomorrow while a student at Smiley High School in Houston, Texas. That's going to be a story for another day, I believe.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Deb.
Hello, hello. The Betty Crocker moment was a surprise. Thank you for that. It is so wonderful. It is so wonderful to hear Mike Schill remind us. I'm always inspired when I hear him talk about what the University of Oregon is doing. So yay.
And I fully agree. I thought we'd start the conversation with a little bit of context. Tell us something about the courses you've been teaching last year and what the student experience in those courses was like pre-COVID.
As you noted, I lead a wonderful faculty and now 700 majors, advertising majors in the School of Journalism and Communication. And in that role, I've taught the intro class. I'm a firm believer that that tenured faculty and full professors should be in large classes to offer that. So I've taught our intro class, and I've taught for the past 3 years, a class in our new Masters in Advertising and Brand Responsibility. So in both of those areas, a small cohort with the master's group of about 24, and then in larger classes of 150 or so, the idea is to build community, right? And so over the last, 400 years of teaching the big intro class, it has been about building community, about building relationships. That's what faculty members and students thrive on, right? So, so that pivot was interesting, to say the least.
And let's turn to that pivot for just a moment. I happen to be on campus in March, in fact, this week in March of last year, when the decision was made to move all of the spring quarter courses to remote learning. What was your initial response to that decision? And my goodness, how did you adapt?
Well, I'm going to edit a little bit of my initial response because it's probably not great for a nice audience like this. I will say, just like the world, you know, I'm always stunned by the fact that all of us were in this moment, right? And that it feels very personal. Look what we did, look what I did, but all of us were in this moment. So there was the March 12th. There we had a faculty meeting, and there was the announcement where we would be going to online, and you know, I would say 95% of us had never taught online before, right? I mean, we'd done interesting little Skype sessions or something, but Zoom was not a moment and was not a term necessarily that we knew. So so that pivot was like, oh, let's do this for a few weeks, and then it'll be normal again. But we had 1 week, spring break, 1 week to transfer not only the intellectual content, but the you know, the sense of community, the sense of outcomes, learning outcomes, from in-class relationships to online, and didn't know at all what we were in for, right? Just didn't know. So so that switch was uncertain, just like for all of us. It was there was anxiety. There was look, I can't do this, often said. My husband also teaches in the journalism school. He's a photojournalist. And between us, we had 380 students that we were teaching from our garage, right? He's wonderful. He set up a studio. Glad you can't see behind the curtain, right? But set up a studio so that we could, and we did it quickly in that week, right? Okay, we're going to do this. It's good that we didn't know all of the obstacles in front of us. I'll say that.
Well, now, Deb, in that spring of last year, were you teaching both the master's course and the undergraduate intro course? Did you have to adapt both of them?
I had just finished. It was winter when I was teaching the graduate course, so it was just the undergraduate course. But as Mike Schill noted, both my husband and I are involved with other faculty with science and memory, and which is an experiential project where we're looking at climate and environmental change and how to tell those stories. And of course, that is in the field. So we had, you know, please consider my sadness with this. We had already scheduled and paid for a trip to a coral research facility in Hawaii, and a trip to our beloved Cordova, Alaska science and memory outpost, where we look at, again, changing scenery. So we were full on with both of those projects, and of course, everything halted. So not only were there classes, but for many of us, and for me personally, there was the stuff of such passion and avocation almost, that you know, the sadness of that, the disappointment, the unbelievable moment of losing all of that was made very clear as we marched through March and into April.
So let's go back to your large lecture class. You want to develop a sense of community. What things were you doing last spring to facilitate that sense of community in what can be a course in which the students are often quite anonymous?
Well, you know, right off the bat, and I have a wonderful graduate assistant partner who works with me. So we wanted to build that community with sort of a hands-in. Okay, look, none of us know where this is leading, but here's what we want to do. So, you know, we had not only our learning outcomes, but our in a sense, our community outcomes. Right. How are we going to build? And it's a creative class, right? So it's about making, it's about collaboration, it's about bringing ideas and people together in both wonderfully diverse ways and wonderfully creative outcome ways. So I look, this is 1, 2, 3, this is the 4th time I've taught this class in this way, right? And the things that we've all learned. But for that first class, it was about trying to access empathy for all of us. We talked a lot about that. Have your cameras on if you possibly can, because obviously we want to see each other's faces. We want to do this. But if you can't, I get that, right? I understand that. There were in that first class, if I can tell a couple of things, there were, we had a lot of successes, right? We're nodding, people looking, remembering to talk to the camera rather than to talk to the those kinds of things, where we were addressing some of this weird stuff that we were in. 2 things though. On the first day of class, a young man turned his camera off and on, and I thought, what's going on there? And as we were kind of going through, and at the end, I always say, I want 5 great questions, comments, ideas to get us through this. So we had a couple, and then Tyler, this guy who had off and on with his camera, said, I just have to say, I'm in Eastern Oregon. We just had an earthquake, and I stayed on because I need this. I need the normalcy of this. And he had stayed on through an earthquake. And so I thought, that's telling us something right there, that we are all in a lot of head nodding. We all need the normalcy. The other piece was a young woman who was very intently looking, like this into the screen. And she was obviously at home at the kitchen table, mic off. And behind her, her mother comes in, I assume her mother, and just reading her the riot act. And she turns and she's trying to explain something. And she said, I don't care. It was a visceral scene of a family life. And it reminded me, and the GE and I talked about this, that so many times students find the university to be an equalizer, right? I no longer have to deal with some of my family issues. I know I am a person in this class, and I don't have. And she came on afterwards and was apologizing and crying. And I said, do not worry. We went through all of that. But whoa, what a lesson there about the realities of what the university gives people. Mm-hmm. Right. And I guess, again, that equalizing force was something.
So we're now 1 year into the remote learning COVID kind of experience. How well have your advertising students adapted to remote learning? What have they gained and what have they lost, if anything?
Yeah. Great question. All your questions are great, Bruce. So that's wonderful. I tell you, one thing, I like to use a lot of speakers and a lot of, people coming in, young alumni, older seasoned alumni, or, iconic people in the industry. And all of them reminded our students, collaboration is like this. For the last 5 years, someone at Wyden and Kennedy in Portland is also working with a London production group and maybe talking to Shanghai in the afternoon, so there was a consistency that said, wait a minute, you're in a creative industry that values collaboration no matter what. So use this. So we even had an exercise of writing the resume line about your Zoom philosophy, and using that. So in one sense, no matter where we go in the next year, and I'm hopeful about that, students have learned a valuable lesson about collaboration, and that certainly agencies and brands and organizations will be using these tools. I mean, the work from home and work remotely is not going to go away. It's going to be shaped in some way. So they have that experience. That won't be new to them. I think we've all learned, and this is not a surprise to anyone, that the value of relationships is very real. You know, I'm looking at the students. I'm building relationships right now digitally, even though they may be just a mile away or something. Or they're also all over the United States, all over the world. You know, we have people coming into class from China, Japan, Spain, New York, New Jersey. You know, so we're here together. So there's a lesson in that. The last class I had in winter 2020, I have no sense of time, the last classroom experience, and this is telling for right now, right? I said goodbye to all of them. I'm a hugger, so anybody who also needed that hug, I'll hug and talk to. And one young woman kind of held back. A brilliant young woman from Korea who is in class and still in our major. And she came up and she said, I was just right before class, I was at Starbucks. And she began to cry, really weep. And while at Starbucks, somebody airdropped a virus picture and said, "Go home, you caused this." Thinking about it right now, I'll get verklempt again. And so that was the last hug I gave. And she so deeply needed that, right? I so deeply needed that. To remind us that those relationships are very real and very important. I'm happy to say she is now, she just applied for and was admitted to our Master's in Advertising and Brand Responsibility. So although she's been living in Korea, she's going to come back and she's going to try Eugene again. So there's that. I took that a long way, Bruce, but I wanted to make sure that
but I appreciate it. And, you know, you bring up in a couple of these comments that the essential importance of a relationship between a student and faculty member. Slight digression. Most of my time on campus as an undergraduate was spent hanging out in the faculty coffee room. I don't know why I was allowed to do that, but I was. And it was a critically important part of being able to understand these people that stood in front of the class and learn there's another side to them than just the classroom. And it is the reason I pursued a PhD. So fully understand.
Well, and I'll have to say, and again, as I say, my husband teaches photojournalism. Think about teaching photojournalism remotely, right? And he's done it. I don't know how he's done it, but he said just last night, I said I was preparing for this and thinking about things I wanted to say, and he said, let everyone know how much we miss that interaction. I mean, that we feed on that interaction.
Yeah. Well, this brings me to a very much related question. Your courses are about creativity and about doing things, experiential. Certainly photojournalism is an experiential kind of course. How is that working that experiential component in this virtual world that we now find ourselves tethered to?
You know, it works in sort of a damn it, we're going to make this work mode, right? You know, and I think that comes both from faculty and students. Wait, I need this, we're going to get it. And so you adapt and reshape and find a way and show stuff and then say, you know, I'll meet 4 of you out on the Otson Bridge and I'll show you this, you know. So there's been weird stuff all the time. And then it doesn't work, right? I mean, you know, the reality that the best experiential learning happens when you are together and discovering those things together. Now, you know, we've been able to tease out ways to do this and ways to make breakout rooms work, or to make, you know, to have people come in to talk, those kinds of things. So, right. You know, we have found ways, but it will be so heavenly to get back to the classroom, into those real relations. I think even though some students react very well to this, and it's been interesting to see that, I think there should be ways that we can adapt for them a little bit, but getting back to the classroom is the goal.
Right, right. Let me check in with our good friend Julie Tobias and see where the Q&A stream now stands. Julie, I'm sure you've got some questions queued up.
I do. We've had some great audience questions, and I just want to thank everyone for submitting them during the registration process, and also those who have used the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's still time to get your question in by using that feature if you'd like to ask Professor Morrison a direct question. So the first one that we had, Professor Morrison, was you talked a little bit about, you know, students having a lot of things going on in the background and around them. How are you able to keep your students motivated and focused in on their education during this time?
You know, what a wonderful question, and I think about that every day. You know, again, we've used a lot of this technique, right? Being able to get people, look, my forte is being able to give an hour-long lecture with energy and walking around the room and making this happen. And that doesn't work as well here, right? So I have to split that into chunks. You know, there has to be a way to kind of feed and remember and look at that so that it is more digestible. So there's that. There's also the sense that, you know, I just have this feeling, I don't have data, so this is all anecdotal. They want and need this. To hear them say, and to read it in chat, thank you, Deb. Thank you for that lecture. I needed that. Thank you. You know, they're kind of a consistency of gratitude. I think they all feel that. I have an idea book assignment, very creative. And one of the things I've asked in this last 2 terms is name 5 things you've learned during this time. And almost to a person, consistently, I get this idea of 1, I need people, but 2, I'm grateful when I'm able to connect with someone, right? When that happens. So, you know, so it's there.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about how the University of Oregon really is such an important part of students' lives, and they really need it. To, I guess, that point, they are still students. they are still here to learn. We need to make sure that they are still getting the education that they were promised when they committed to come to the University of Oregon. How are students being assessed for knowledge gain and sort of that application of knowledge this year? Are finals looking the same? You know, did your method of seeing if they are doing well in class change because of COVID? How are you sort of incorporating that chaos behind them as well?
Well, I think we all have experimented, and with great experimentation comes great failure sometimes. And we've all looked at new ways. Now, in my classes per se, there's no testing, right? I mean, there's knowledge gain, but there's also, we do a lot of confidence gain around making ideas and saying it's okay to fail, because in idea and innovation, you know, you want to instill that. I watch some people call it in. And so I've had more than a scolding voice with them. I've taken on the, okay, dude, what do you need? Because this isn't working. You know, what you're doing now isn't working. So what do you need? And those conversations usually go well. I mean, we've also lost some students. They just disappear from, and no matter what type of outreach is there, we haven't found them. I mean, that's a minuscule amount, but still different than in the olden times when, we could verify where they were, what they were doing. I guess to that, every term has done it. I've flipped assignments, made new assignments, put in more reflection pieces, those kinds of things in order to try to access that, okay, what are we doing here? What is happening? And and to be honest, some of that I'm going to still use when we go back to the classroom. So it's pushed me, a pretty good teacher, it's pushed me to reevaluate some things. That's good. And it's also pushed me to say, the mentoring in person is what we need. I know that.
You mentioned some skills that actually, it sounds like because of COVID, students have been able, and remote learning, students have been able to practice a bit more. Attention, their sense of empathy. You said you've been building resume pieces about technology. You do teach, in a professional school, and the goal, of course, is to get these students ready to be cast out into the world and have their own careers in advertising. Have there been any changes in your industry due to COVID? And if so, is that impacting your curriculum and how you are preparing students to be in advertising?
Oh, sure. I think certainly one big trend. Let me say first, we have two classes which I think are part of our secret weapon. One of those that we've had, and both of them we've had for years, but both of them become all the more important right now. One of those is a confidence class, a workshop. And the man who teaches that is just, maybe he's even made it better to fulfill this sense of having confidence in this area. He's amazing. And the other is a curiosity class. We heard from industry that they wanted young talent to be more curious. So we built a curiosity class about 10 years ago, and it's been amazing. And so watching Dave Caranda use this time as a funnel for curiosity. Why does that happen? Why does that work? Who are we talking to, et cetera, has been very interesting. I think in terms of industry trends, one, in the past year, there's a great reckoning around systemic racism, around climate justice, And we have been dealing with those things. We've been talking about those things. We see our major, this is sort of a lecture, sorry, but we see our major not necessarily as advertising, that A word, but here's our major: critical, conceptual, creative skills to solve problems responsibly for people and brands in a global culture. Now, the registrar won't let me take out one word and put in all of those words for our major, but that solving problems responsibly, we've been going after climate change and social justice for a while, but this radicalized this. The industry wants young talent. Young talent is going to demand of the industry that they look at these things, and the industry is responding by saying, how do we do this? And so we are very well positioned to talk and lead and discover in that area. That could have gone on 2 more hours, so I'm glad I just cut it off.
We'll just have to audit one of your classes, it sounds
like. Please, come in.
Well, this has been very inspiring to listen to you, Professor Morrison, and thank you again for answering all of our questions, and to the members of the class of 1970 and 71 who submitted those questions. Bruce, I believe you had a final question for Deb that you'd like to ask.
Actually, I have 2. Let me start with the less challenging. Once Oregon resumes in-person classes again, do you anticipate retaining any of the remote learning elements in your course? Will, for example, you use remote learning platforms as collaborative mechanisms, as you've described?
Sure. We'll pick and choose. The whole breakout system methodology is good, but we'll also, I'm looking at the curriculum of this program, and we also are absolutely going to use a remote function for a couple of classes. Right now, we added one this term where 2 strategists, one in New York and one in LA, are team teaching a strategy course. We're going to keep that, right? Where everybody knows how to use Zoom. It was a remarkable, amazing course by all standards, and gave us national spotlight again. So we'll use that. So, and we'll find ways for some classes to be synchronous, as in the moment remote. I'm not a fan of asynchronous, that is push and play.
Right.
You know, why are we here, right? But so we'll use pieces of this as we go forth.
My last question. What has surprised you the most about your remote learning experience over the last year?
And to be honest, I think it's my need to be with students, their need to be with people, right? I mean, that's not a surprise, but it still hits me like a ton of bricks all the time. I think that, you know, there are such magical moments in these relationships that are so important, that if we are really building the next great set of citizens and thinkers and creators in the world, as our mission statement says, we have to be together in multiple ways, but we have to be together.
Well, and it's the huge value add associated with a residential university.
Right.
So, well, again, I thank you on behalf of both the class of 1970 and 1971. I look forward to another opportunity to host a conversation with you. So thank you
Wonderful.
so very much.
My honor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Julie, I believe you have some closing remarks.
I do. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this wonderful conversation. It's just a little look into what you can expect from your 50th reunion. We encourage really everyone to visit this website, which is your class website, that www.uoalumni.com/reunion 1970 and 71. This is really your one-stop shop for all your reunion needs. From here, you can access your class of 1970 and 1971 class books and add your page if you haven't done that yet. You can watch past event videos. The class of 1970, while they were waiting to jump on with 1971, produced a wonderful virtual campus tour where you can walk around campus with a current student. You can also view your oreganas and take a little walk down memory lane. And you can stay up to date about reunion plans. Hopefully you've heard, but in case you haven't, we are going to be hosting a joint 50th reunion for the classes of 1970 and 71 this fall. Since a lot remains unknown, at least part of the reunion, if not all of it, will be virtual, but we are hopeful that we can host some in-person activities as well. But because it will also be virtual, we hope that that means that more classmates than ever before will be able to participate in their reunion activities. The committee, so Bruce, Benny, Marcy, and hopefully some 1971 committee members are working hard behind the scenes to help us see what that really looks like. And we'll be announcing more in the next few months, including a date. I know everyone is very anxious for that date. Over email. So please keep your eye on email and help us spread the word that the reunion is happening, and encourage your friends to join us as well. So with that, back to you, Bruce, for the final close.
And my remarks are short. Be engaged, stay engaged, and get others engaged in this 50th reunion series of events. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Have a pleasant day.